You're listening to Kizuki, the podcast. I'm Mae Yoshikawa, and I define the Japanese concept of Kizuki as the following. Kizuki. 1. A moment of epiphany, an aha of realization or insight which opens the knower to a new dimension of truth that was formerly unknown. 2. Steps in an incremental growth of awareness, resulting in a movement from ignorance to greater awareness of the bigger picture. A kind of knowing that cannot be undone, that cannot be unrealized. As a longtime yoga and meditation practitioner, a world traveler, and curious self-explorer, I'm obsessed with Kizukis. Listen on each week for inspiring and enlightening stories that may just tip you over for your next aha. On this week's episode, A Basis of Yes. This week, I'm still very much in the middle of that thing, the big transition mess that I was in last week. And so, since I'm not yet ready and it's all yet unformed, instead of trying to go into all of that and dissect it, I just want to share with you an episode from something that happened this past weekend. It might sound on the surface like it's about raising kids, but really it's not, because it was just as applicable to myself in my self-relationship as it is in raising my children. Okay, so last weekend, my kids' school had the spring festival. It's like the biggest event of the year. And my older son, Isa, was part of a band, and he was up on stage pretty much all afternoon, set after set, playing all of these cool songs. And my younger one, Aiden, every time it was his brother's turn to take the stage, he would come out of nowhere of like playing games and at the food stands and whatever, and he would always find his way just in time to sit in the front row, cheering harder than anyone else for his brother and his band. And I got to witness that. And I found myself talking to a friend, just reflecting about these different phases of parenting. You know, because when you're a toddler mom, you're happy to just chase them around and be super close to them and hold their hand and make sure that they are within sight. But as they grow up, things shift. Kids start thinking for themselves, and of course you want them to. They will have their own opinions, their own rhythm, their own world and society, right? So it's like seeing your kids at school is an entirely different face than you see at home, because at home you see them as your children, but at school you see them be part of a greater web of friends and teachers and faculty and staff and different clubs and such. So in many ways, you get to see that aspect of them that's a little farther from you and more individually them. That's not in a bad way, and it's an absolutely necessary and beautiful unfolding. At the same time, they're not fully independent yet, so they are still asking for permission, for time, for money, for freedom. But the direction is clear. One way or another, they are going. And so, in reflecting on these different phases of parenthood, I said something to my friend that I hadn't really put into words before. I told her that when my kids ask me for something, particularly the older one, because now he's just expanding his sphere and his world, whether it's about going out or trying something new or doing something experimental, I try to make sure that my bottom line is a basis of yes. That doesn't mean that I'm always going to say yes to him. And it sure doesn't mean that I'm going to close my eyes and give a blind yes to him. But it feels more to me like leaning toward a yes than a no. And that's because I noticed several years ago that it's very easy to want to say no. Perhaps especially true with your oldest, because you've been so close to them for so long. They are the most dear presence to you. You want to protect them, to manage them, to keep things contained because you just want them to be happy and you don't want them to be hurt, like the less risk, the better or something. But it's also true that every time you say no, you risk closing them off. Perhaps not dramatically or not all at once, but if you keep saying no, it's like you're slowly stripping them away of their will and sovereignty to choose for themselves. And that can create distance, a kind of quiet crevasse in the relationship between you and your child. And so pretty early on, I think, I recognized that what's more important to me is to keep that channel open with my child, the channel of communication, the channel of witnessing him, them, where they're at, and being in on the loop rather than an outsider having to guess what's going on with their lives. And that's even as they grow, and even as they grow to become different individuals from me. That means that they're going to choose things that I might not fully understand or agree with, but I still wanted to feel close in relationship, in spite of whatever differences or disagreements. I wanted there to be trust, not because we're similar, but because we can respect each other and honor each other even in our differences. So for me, with this phase of parenting, unless it's an obvious, clear, grounded no for some reason, all in all, I try to lean openly toward a yes. Now, the following day after the festival, my friend who I spilled all this out to, she texts me and she goes, there's something you said that really got me thinking. So we hopped on a call and started talking later. And she told me that on her way home from the festival, what I said had gotten her thinking because she remembered all the moments with her own son when he was a teenager, and she leaned toward a no, and how that ended up creating a kind of distance, at least temporarily, that was not intended on her part. And then she asked me, where did you learn this? Who taught you this? I wish someone had told me earlier that I could have chosen from a basis of yes. And that got me thinking, because it's not like anyone taught me this. It's not like there's a book or a class, but it's something that I just observed in life by watching myself and by watching my kids and noticing, being keen to notice what happens in real time in terms of this constriction in fear and control, or leaning towards the allowance in spite of the risk, or sometimes being anxious, Because the instinct to say no, I recognized clearly came from my egoic desire for control. And sometimes it can even come in the name of love, like I love you, therefore I want to keep you safe, therefore you shouldn't go out or whatever. But if you're really real with yourself and honest with yourself, I think you can tell the difference, whether that comes from a fear that belongs to you or a love that recognizes what is, a what is that keeps growing and evolving day by day and opens to that next possibility. So after this conversation with my friend, then this domino effect started coming back to me because I realized, oh my God, this isn't just about parenting. It's actually much harder to do this with ourselves. Because when it comes to my own life, my own choices, my future, the risks that I might take in adulthood, especially after whatever wounds and negative experiences that you've had in the past. Like, we've been hurt not just once or twice, but many times. So after all of those experiences, it's so easy to default to a no. No, that's not safe. No, that's too risky. That might be too much. No, that might not work. No, I don't think that will happen. And again, it might come under the guise of being a responsible adult who is trying to protect yourself. But truthfully, we're just trying to control the unknown based on facts from the past. Ooh, so this thing that came out of my own mouth through my friend came back to myself, and I thought, what if I treat myself and my choices with a basis of yes, the same way that I do with my kids? So it's not like asking, is this safe? Or can I control the outcome? Is it too risky? But instead, I might flip that and say, is this no an extension of fear? And if it's not a clear, grounded, absolute no, does it maybe get to be a yes, a potential, something I might open myself to and be willing to try? Because guess what? No matter the age, I am growing too. And so are you. Our spirits get to be just as free as our children's. So maybe that's the Kizuki here, this interplay, this cross-section between the fear, anxiety, and the freedom and openness of a yes that might take us into new grounds, into the unknown. I do still want to be clear. It's not about becoming someone who says yes to everything, but I think that's the thing about adulthood. We can be aware enough to take a temperature check on, is this something that I don't really want? Then we can say no to out of discretion and out of preference, not out of fear, not out of control, not out of wanting to keep things predictable. What if we gifted that to ourselves? What would happen if your life had a basis of yes? Not a reckless yes or a forced yes, but a willingness to stay open and to trust your open-eyed, wide-eyed awareness that if it is a no, you will know and you will be able to call it. So until then, why not try on a basis of yes? Because sometimes it's not the yes that changes everything. It could be the no that you consciously chose not to say. Thank you for listening. If you missed the recent Kizuki Journaling online session, the on-demand replay is now available at maey.live under On Demand. And if you'd like to be the first to know when the next live session opens, you can sign up for my weekly newsletter at the bottom of maey.live or kizukijournaling.com.